It's the 3rd of December 2018. I'm David Griffin. I'm here at Derbyshire CCC Cricket Club, and I'm talking to
Dave Fletcher.
David, thanks very much for joining us as part of our oral history project. I'm normally this side of the camera, so it all quite suits me really, but you're not normally that side of the camera. You normally got a microphone in front of you.
I feel a bit awkward.
Yes, well, we'll put you at ease. We'll put you at ease. Now, you're currently the BBC Radio Derby Sport Cricket Correspondent for Derbyshire Cricket. But if we could just start with your kind of formative years in cricket. When did you first get involved in cricket, either as a player or a watcher?
Well, my dad always played village cricket. We moved to Yorkshire when I was 9. He always played village cricket, and I was one of those kids who'd turn up with him and hope that they'd only have 10 men so you could get on the field and do a bit of fielding. I played for, it was a team called Barnby Moor in the York Senior League. They weren't very good. And I bowled a bit, couldn't bat. And
what sort of bowler?
Medium pace at best. But on a village wicket,
Yeah.
you could get the ball to do all sorts. You had no idea what it was going to do, but you could get it to do all sorts. So it was okay. I used to like fielding at slip.
Yeah.
I thought I had pretty good hands. But never progressed further than that. I went to a public school, as many people will know. Never, ever got near the first team at cricket. Ever. Would love to have done. We had superb facilities, but we used to play on just a bit of a strip cut on the rugby pitch, basically. And the first time I ever went to watch cricket, I think, was probably Scarborough in the mid-70s.
Right.
The touring West Indians played that. It was probably at the end of the season in the old late festival that they had, wasn't it? When T.N. Pearce's 11 and teams like that played. And the West Indies were there, and we went as a family, and we sat under the covered stand at the far side to the press box, and I was just staggered how big these men were. They were huge. I mean, and I was 12, 13, and they were just enormous individuals, and I've always enjoyed watching cricket. It's just one of those things, and you either do or you don't, I think. I don't think there's any way you can really persuade somebody to go and watch cricket if they haven't watched it from quite a young age. My lad used to sit in front of the television videos of World Cups and stuff like that, and he loves cricket as well now, but a lot of his mates aren't interested, which is a real shame.
And was broadcasting, I mean, you were 12, did you say? 12, 14. Was broadcasting or a career in the media ever in your sort of...
Always.
Oh, right.
The only thing I've ever wanted to do is be on the radio, from being a very small child.
Right. So what prompted that then?
I don't know. I used to go to Birkenhead Park Rugby Club. My grandmother lived in Birkenhead. I used to go to Birkenhead Park Rugby Club, take one of those old big cassette recorders and commentate on the match, and then go back and listen to it on a Saturday evening at her house. It's bizarre, and I'd probably be about 9 or 10 then. Always wanted to be on the radio, as I say, but went into newspapers.
So was this from, did you go to university? Or was
I went to university in Liverpool, yeah.
And was that to do a media course?
No, I did political theory and institutions.
Right.
Oh, very educated.
So why did you do that? I'm just interested. Why did you see that as having some value in a broadcasting career?
I needed to go to Liverpool University because I bought a season ticket for Tranmere. So I had to get in at Liverpool.
Right.
And that was the course. I don't know. I thought it might help me become a journalist. Yes.
Right.
But the reason for going, I was going back home really,
Yes.
because I was brought up on Merseyside till I was 9, and then my parents left. I was going back home, to my mind. And left there and got a job working on a local newspaper in Goulburn. I was doing football to start with, and I've done rugby league as well. Then I went back to football at Halifax many years later.
So how easy were you to say, oh, I got a job working in a newspaper at Gould? Well, how difficult was that? What year are we talking?
We are talking mid-80s.
Right. So was that a relatively easy thing to do with the qualifications you'd got?
Yes, and the fact that my dad knew the editor.
Right.
That always helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I shouldn't really be admitting this kind of thing on film. So I got in there, and funnily enough, I went in there as a reporter, and there was a woman there who was the sports editor who didn't really want to do it. And after about 3 weeks, she said, well, do you want to do Gould Town then? I said, yeah, fine. She said, all right, you could be the sports editor and I'll go on to news. And that was it. I became the sports editor of a weekly newspaper. Went from there to Castleford to do some rugby league. Went to the Press Association when they were based in Leeds to do lots of subbing and all sorts of sport.
Did you have a favourite sport at that time?
I would say probably football was
Right.
yeah. I've fallen out of love a little bit with that. I still love rugby league. I still think it's a fantastic game.
And was cricket on the radar in Gaul?
No, not particularly. No, only in the reports that were sent in from the local clubs. Yeah. I used to go out. They used to play a lot of evening cricket in the area, and we used to do one game a week and that kind of thing. But not really. It wasn't major. I think it was probably the Press Association. David Lloyd, who went on to work for the Evening Standard, was the cricket correspondent then, and we used to sub his copy and speak to him, and he was great. He was great. And Mark Baldwin as well was at the Press Association at the time. He was now the chairman of the Cricket Writers. Yeah.
So when was the time when you went from newspapers to broadcasting? How long did you have to wait for that?
Oh, a long time. When I was at Halifax, really. The sports editor at Radio Leeds asked me if I would do some summarising, so be the expert. And I did a bit of that. And then they said, well, why don't you do some reports on the radio? So I did a bit of that. Then I did some rugby league commentary. And then the opportunity came up because they knew that I liked cricket. That it's surprising in an office how few people actually know about cricket as well. So if you just have a minimum of understanding of the game, it puts you at a huge advantage. And I worked with Dave Callaghan, or in place of Dave Callaghan to start with. They sent me up to Scarborough to cover a Middlesex game because Dave's dad was ill, and then I did a couple of test matches. I did the England-Sri Lanka test match that finished in the last over when Jimmy Anderson was out.
So you were covering that for Radio Leeds?
Yeah,
Radio Leeds.
All the Yorkshire stations would take the test match stuff and obviously the Yorkshire stuff as well. Helped enormously by Kevin Hand, who does Middlesex, because I was clueless really. I knew what I had to do, but he provided me with much help.
Was it a big change to cover a game of cricket from covering a
Yeah.
rugby? What's the significant? Before we get on to your Derbyshire life, what was the significant differences between? I presume football and rugby fairly similar.
They are fairly similar, yeah, because there's always, because it's so condensed. Yeah. There's a lot more action. There's a lot more talking. You have to be a bit quicker, and you have to very much tell people whereabouts the ball is at all times and how long there is to go and all that kind of stuff. The factual stuff as well as the flowery nonsense. Whereas cricket, proper cricket, which lasts for 6.5, 7 hours a day and goes on for 4 days, you can take a slightly more relaxed approach. People pretty much know where the ball is in between overs, so you have a lot of downtime. There's a lot of some people might call it padding, but there's a lot of dead air that you have to fill, otherwise.
Absolutely. So where did the call come from? You'd done some work at BBC Radio Leeds.
Yeah.
Dave Callaghan, who sadly died this year, but was presumably seen as the long-term fixture anyway at Leeds. So
I was doing an away game, a T20 match with Dave down at Leicester. Their away summariser had decided that it wasn't worth his while to go to the away games in T20. So Dave said, would you like to come and do the work alongside me at the T20? Jumped at the chance. We're driving back late one night, I think it was a Friday, from Leicester. And he said, you know what, Fletch, best thing about this job, and I'm thinking, well, everything's great about this job. I couldn't possibly pick one. I said, oh, no, go on. You never have to retire. So that was the moment I knew that getting the Yorkshire job was never a possibility.
Yeah.
Even if I'd been deemed good enough to do it. So, there was a vacancy at Radio Derby. So I applied, came down to see the station editor and the news editor, and got the job.
You were kind of thrown in at the deepest of deep ends in many ways, because of course the first season you worked was 2016, and Derbyshire famously or infamously didn't win a game at all that year in the county championship. What was it like from day one when you first came in? Because presumably you didn't know many people, you didn't know, you take time to familiarise yourself with.
Didn't know anybody really.
So
everybody was very welcoming.
What was your commentary position for that first?
Well, yes. Well, we're sitting in this spanking new media centre now. We were at mid wicket or cover in the old scoreboard which is now a groundsman's hut. I think there was basic facilities. I think you'd agree.
Absolutely.
The waft of the toilet from downstairs. I can't remember if it was my first home game. I think it was. Derbyshire played Glamorgan. Oh, it was perishing.
When it snowed?
Yeah. So Nick Webb was here. Lizzie Ammon was here as well. I got a puncture on the way to the ground, so I missed the first few hours. It was terrific, really good introduction. And we were sitting over on the far side. And we had bobble hats on and 3 coats, and it was just awful. The conditions were awful. Yeah. It always makes me laugh because in the job that I do, as in all offices, there's a lot where you must sit properly at your desk and your backrest and all the rest of it, but they never ever go to a football press box or to a cricket press box to see if they're all right to work in. Yeah. And I'd spend more time over the course of a day in a cricket press box than I ever would sitting down at a desk in an office, because you can't just get up and walk out for 10 minutes. You can to a degree, but you very rarely do that. So it always makes me laugh that they never come and have a look at those things. But yeah, I mean, there were basic facilities, but I was watching cricket.
And what was familiarisation like with the team and the squad? Because you'd obviously watched some Yorkshire cricket, but you'd presumably not watched a great deal, if any, of...
I don't think I'd ever seen Derbyshire. I'd never been to this ground until about 4 weeks before the start of the season. I had no idea what to expect. I mean, it's much better now, but I was very impressed. I'm easily impressed, obviously. But I remember coming in and seeing the chairman and the chief executive over in the chairman's box in the members' pavilion. I think you were there as well. And I was extremely impressed. Met Billy Godleman, who'd just been appointed skipper. Yeah. I think that helped because he was new to the job and I was new to the job. It's always awkward when you come in. It's easier in any of the sports that I've covered. If you go into a club and there's a change within a few weeks, that's great, because then you've got not the upper hand. That makes it sound like we're all jostling for position, which we are to a degree, I suppose. But if you're not the newbie anymore, well, Billy was a newbie as far as the captaincy was concerned, and I was a newbie as far as the commentary was concerned, and he was obviously keen to get on with me, and I was keen to get on with him, and that's a great position to be in. Of course, he didn't play in the early games because I think he'd broken his thumb or something like that in the nets. So we. It wasn't a great position to commentate from, but there are worse things to do, aren't there? Much worse things to be doing.
And going back to that first season, how difficult was it for you to? I'm thinking particularly at the end of a day's play when another game has gone by that Derbyshire have not won. How do you approach the task of interviewing the vanquished captain or coach or disappointed, when a game slipped? Because I think there were occasions that year when we had chances to win games. Weren't that many.
I was just going to say, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
How do you go about that under any circumstances when you're just not winning?
It's difficult to start with, definitely difficult to start with, because you have to build up a certain amount of trust, so that you have to... the player or the captain or the coach has to know that you're not there to stitch them up. You're not there to stick the boot in necessarily. The relationship between local media and a club and national media and a club is completely different, because a national reporter, whether it be radio or newspaper, can come in, see something they don't like, take exception to it, and write a scathing attack of the club and not come back for 18 months, by which time it's all blown over and they're welcome back with open arms because of the national media. Yeah. Whereas the local people almost have to tread a bit carefully, and you have to, use the usual euphemism. You must be disappointed that the last 6 wickets fell for 3 runs and you've lost, and things like you just have to be careful. And as long as you are careful, after a while the players will accept harder and harder questions, some more than others, but then again some players are better interviewees than others, and you get to know that as well. And the ones who are keen on it, Hamish Rutherford was never keen on being interviewed at all, full stop, as far as I could work out. Whereas a lot of players will speak and be perfectly pleasant no matter what the situation. So you've just got to be careful, that's all. And the good thing in a way is that at that time I wasn't as involved in the club as I feel that I probably am now, and that's another thing that that's a strange balance. You come in, you don't have any of the baggage of the previous seasons and all the rest of it. You don't really have any of the baggage of that season. They're just not the best side in the world. They're not the best side in the second division of the county championship. But that's not too bad. But after 2 or 3 years, we might come on to that, you're sort of desperate for them to do a bit more. I mean, it's always easier if they win or if they're doing well, because it just makes your job easier, doesn't it? But I could get back in the car in that first season, shrug my shoulders and drive home, and because I lived quite a long way away, by the time I got home I'd probably forgotten what had happened that day anyway.
Yeah, but I suspect that was that detachment, because you were, as you just said, it was brand new and you've not got that kind of emotional attachment. I suspect. What about the away trips that first year? Because obviously you were given an opportunity to travel the length and breadth of the country. What were your impressions of away grounds?
Well, I love them. I was going to places I'd never been to before. There's only 1 or 2 now that I've not been to. I've never been to the Oval, never been to Taunton. I'd been to 1 or 2 of the test grounds, but I like the second division grounds. I've got to say, the grounds that we've gone to, go down to Canterbury and Hove and Bristol, they're just nice places to go to. The people are very friendly, very welcoming. I knew 1 or 2 of the commentators from football days past and that kind of thing, so they were always welcoming. But yeah, I much prefer, if I had a choice, a genuine choice, I probably would know. I mean, Lancashire is my county to a point. I'm from Cheshire, but it wouldn't worry me if I never went to Old Trafford, if I never went to Headingley. It certainly wouldn't worry me if I never went to Trent Bridge or Durham. Lords was slightly different last year because it's Lords.
Yeah.
But the big test venues, Cardiff, what a horrible place Cardiff is. Fortunately, we've only been there once in 3 years and we're not going there this year.
Swansea and Worcester, which is next year will be
Worcester, which I didn't even mention. It's fantastic. And you talk about the commentary position. The commentary position at Worcester is not great.
No.
I mean, this facility we have at Derby now is magnificent. The one we had before, at least you didn't have anything in your line of sight, which at Worcester,
indeed,
you've got all sorts of pillars in front of you, and you're dodging one way and then the other, and there's a low hanging roof, and it is what it is, and you just get on with it and describe it to the best of your ability.
Well, what I'd like to do next, and I think this is probably an opportune point to pause, is to look at 2017 and 2018, which by comparison with 2016 was almost a glory years.
An absolute triumph.
So we'll talk about some of your memorable moments, I think, and some of the players that you've watched. But for now, David, thank you.